Welcome to ProCon 2021 and developing a culture of belonging at our JCCs. My name is Mark S. Young. I am Director of J-Response at JCC Association of North America and a member of the Program and Talent team. This session is being recorded. We understand that some people do not wish to be recorded, in which case you may turn off your camera, though we encourage everyone who is comfortable doing so to stay visible so we can feel as if we are all together. If this is not the session you intended to join, return to Spot Me and select a different session. There's about 15 enrichment electives happening right now. I will say you're in a really great one, so I encourage you to stick around. Joining me today from JCC Association is my really great colleague, Angela Tranquil of our amazing marketing and communications team. Both of our names appear as hosts at the top of your participant list. You can chat with either of us to address any needs or questions anytime during this hour. We aspire for every person to feel like they belong, how appropriate given this session, at ProCon 2021, and are working to build inclusive spaces in which all people feel welcome, respected, safe, and fully included. To that end, we encourage you to consider the following suggestions as we begin our time together. Rename yourself in Zoom if you haven't already with your name, agency, and if you're comfortable, your personal pronoun. We have enabled closed captioning. You can turn that off if you wish, but we also have it on so you can access this session that way as well. Please reach out to Angela or me in chat if there's anything we can do to enhance your learning experience during this hour. We are thrilled to offer this multifaceted 3-day conference at no cost to you or your JCCs, made possible, you've heard this already, it's important that we say this again, because of our generous ProCon 2021 sponsors. Each sponsor believes in the JCC movement and the incredible work JCCs accomplish day in and day out. Their representatives are proud to be with us to share their experience and offerings. We hope that you'll stop by their booths at the virtual vendor hall again today from 1:45 to 2:45 Eastern. And I will add that vendors have already said this is the best virtual conference and overall conference they've been to in so long because JCC professionals are coming and they're showing their appreciation. So please continue to do that because they're making this all possible. Okay, the good stuff, the really, really good stuff. We are thrilled to welcome Maya Chechik-Sharir of the International Culture of Belonging Hub, beaming to us from Israel, and Wendy Verba, Managing Director of Community Impact at the San Francisco-based Jewish Community Federation and Endowment Fund, to ProCon. So we have San Francisco and Israel speaking to us today. I have gotten to know them over the past several months, and they are truly spectacular. In this session, they will share their culture of belonging methodology used all over the world, from the Matnasim, the Israel Association of Community Centers, and Jewish organizations in the San Francisco Bay Area to communities in Nepal. They'll offer tools and resources to help us JCC professionals develop a mindset, methodology, and language to deepen belonging throughout our own JCC communities. Culture of belonging is a key vision of our talent strategy for the JCC movement, and we are so excited to engage in this with all of you. Maya, Wendy, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mark. With that, we have a lot of expectations to live up to. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be around the globe. We are really very, very excited to be here. I speak for both of us. And we've been preparing for this now for a couple of weeks and many, many weeks actually. And Wendy and I are really just thrilled to have this opportunity. So thank you, Mark, and thank you, Angela, for inviting us and including us in your incredible program. So the goal of this session, and as we call it, it's sort of a kickstart session, is to provide you just with a taste. 55 minutes, that's quite a challenging goal for us. So just of a taste of our culture of belonging framework. I am Maya Chechik, and I'm head of content of the San Francisco Federation's Global Culture of Belonging Hub. And with me is my longtime partner and now also friend, Wendy Verba, who leads the San Francisco Culture of Belonging team at the Federation. Few norms before we dive in, if only possible, and I know it's not always possible, but please turn your cameras on. We're talking about belonging and seeing each other. So we'd really appreciate it if you have the opportunity to turn your camera on so we can connect and see your smiles, see your reactions. It seems that everyone's on mute, so I don't have to say that again. We do encourage you to chat away. One of us will be talking, the other one will be monitoring the chat. So just chat away if you have questions, if you have comments, anything. That's what we're all about. So let's start. Before we dive in, I want to share a story of how it all started. I could start with once upon a time, a long, long time ago, but actually it wasn't that long ago. But anyway, the vision behind the framework that we're about to present is driven by Dr. Sarala Shadmi-Wortman, who's an Israeli academic. Some of you may have had the opportunity to have met her. And she has dedicated her entire life, really dozens of years, to developing a model for building strong, sustainable communities around the world. She's worked all over, and actually, as Mark already shared with you, one of her biggest successes and longest project has been with the IACC, which is the Israeli Association of Community Centers. It continues today within the centers, and it's really amazing to see what a change that has made over there. Just over 5 years ago, as a result of a population study conducted in the San Francisco area, we learned that there are far too many Jews that feel outside the fray of Jewish community. So we put on our thinking hats and decided that it was time to intentionally open a doorway for every Jewish household in the area to a meaningful Jewish life. We tried to think of how a life where each of us could feel seen, heard, and part of a Jewish community, what would that look like? We set off to define a vision, a work model, and developed a cultural belonging framework that intentionally, and you'll hear a lot about that intention in a moment, designs belonging within organizations, within groups, and within broader communities. Now, after almost 14 months of socially distancing, living in a pandemic, I wish I could say through, but we're living in a pandemic, connection and engagement have taken on a completely new meaning. We all realize that building a strong organization with an inclusive belonging culture, both internally for employees, as Mark stated, a talent strategy, and externally with members, is a crucial building block to the organization's success and sustainability. But as you all know, turning this vision into reality requires change. And changing requires seeing and doing things differently. It requires putting on our belonging glasses. So let's get started. I want you all to stretch, roll your shoulders back, take a deep breath, move a little bit, and focus. Thank you for those who are collaborating and cooperating with me. You can close your eyes or just stare off to the wall and think of a meaningful group from your life. It can be something recent or something in the past. It can be from a JCC or not a JCC. And I'd like you to reflect. What was the group? Why did you join it? Why was it meaningful for you? What did you feel there that made it meaningful? Why are you remembering it now at this moment? And when you're ready, open your eyes and jot down a few thoughts and feelings that come to mind as you answer these questions. And Wendy has put the questions in the chat for you to see. What was the group? Why was it meaningful? What did you feel there that made it meaningful for you? And why are you remembering it now? Take a moment, jot just a few thoughts down. Okay, in just a moment, Angela is going to do her magic and she's going to put you into breakout rooms and you'll have about 3 people. Most of you will be 3 or 4. I don't know how we're divided. After you introduce yourselves, your organization, where you're from, we ask that you reflect on the group that came to mind and the questions we asked. And the important thing to focus on is the why. Why was this group meaningful for you? You don't have to talk about the details of the group itself, but the why was it meaningful for you? Be mindful of time. You have 12 minutes. So everyone in your group has a chance to speak. And we're curious to hear what you come up with. Enjoy. So if you just write in the chat some common themes that came up, something you noticed, shared values, Sarah is writing, sense of belonging and inclusion. Ooh, these are coming in quickly. Common purpose, inclusivity, no judgment, family, home, teamwork, support, adjusting to changes, safe space, building relationships, shared passion. Are we as inclusive as we say we are? Mothers meeting early on and making connections, focus on connections, goals and bettering ourselves, accomplishment, rhythm, life cycles, supported, passion, that's a strong word. Authentic, open, family again is coming up. Shared experience, staying together, longtime friends, moral support. Okay, wow, so many of these. Wait, there's still more coming. I'll let everyone take their time. No label, just be yourself, whatever you identify with, connecting with people. Okay, interesting. A lot of things repeating themselves, some new things coming in, again, supportive. There is something about groups that we feel that we belong to, that we feel that we are part of, that we feel that are meaningful to us, that is very, very strong, right? Relationship, empathy. I heard the word home and family a lot in the groups, accepting changes, and it goes on, and I love all of these. Mark, you should definitely save this chat. And I wonder, Coach Joe, you're asking, are we as inclusive as we say we are? Do you want to elaborate a little bit of that?
I was not expected to be called upon. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Starbucks.
I didn't mean to
No,
put
we're
you.
good. No, we're good. I took a drink of my drink. Kind of felt bad. No, I met Lori from Harrisburg, and it was interesting. I struggle with this here a lot at my J. It's not a big deal. It always strikes me. It's funny how, we're a Jewish community center. It says it in our name, right? Like on the front of our building. And I run a very big basketball program here. When we opened the building in 2012, I had a vision of travel basketball, and I was explaining to them how it works here. My old director, he was like, "What? Who are you bringing in here? Like what?" Like he could not get it. And I was like, "Listen, they're kids, colors, waste, whatever. It doesn't matter." And they couldn't see that. It's crazy. And so I struggle with that here because we play a lot of basketball here, and we go to places and we travel and we do all these things. And like, parents still don't get it. And it's like, it's a Jewish community center. It's like, yeah, but is it just for Jewish kids? Just for Jewish residents? So it's hard because you struggle with that sometimes, especially with what we do. So I don't know, that's what we talked about in our group. So.
Okay, thank you for that perspective, the importance of inclusivity in the spaces that we lead. And I'm just really randomly calling just to hear a few of the voices and the discussions that came up. Claire Kennedy, you wrote support, trust, belonging. Do you want to elaborate a sentence or two on that? Claire, if you're answering and you're on mute or you're not here. Okay, we'll go on to someone else. Michelle Mendel, mindfulness. Michelle Mendel.
I wonder if that's Michelle from the Mandel JCC. I'm just guessing. May or may not be.
Oh, it could also be the PJCC. But I don't know. Michelle, are you here? Okay, I'll try another Michelle. Shabtai, staying together on campus and online during the pandemic.
Hi, yeah. We were discussing, the sense of belonging on campus and off campus, and we were just wowed by the senior population who were so hesitant at the beginning with the Zooming and the programming, and they just jumped right in and just when their program has ended, they don't want to leave the Zoom room. They just want to stay together. And it's so fun to see how they did that. I feel sometimes Zoom fatigue, but they just can't get enough. And it gave them that sense of belonging, especially when they were, like in their rooms and in their senior homes, and their mobility is limited. It was just so amazing to see that from little kids to senior citizens. I love it.
Thank you so much for being willing to share. It is so important across generations and in times that we struggle, the connections we make and what that means for belonging. And I'll just take one more. I'm just sort of rolling here the comments, and the one that comes up is Lori Rubin, building relationships.
Yeah, I'm here.
Great.
Yeah, like Coach Joe, we were talking about inclusivity, and I said, I'm talking about when we build relationships with people, whether they are members or staff members, we get to know them and their stories, which allows them to feel more a part of the group, place, space.
Great. Indeed, stories and getting to know people definitely make those connections. So now, thinking about that meaningful group that you just shared about, I'm going to put up a QR code, and I'm going to ask you to actually take out your phones and scan the QR code. And at the same time, Wendy's also going to put in the chat a link in case you don't have your phone by you or you just don't want to scan. You have two options. Either just put up your phone and you can scan the QR code. It will take you to 5 very simple questions, or use the link in the chat that will lead you to 5 questions about the group that you shared in your breakout rooms. So take a moment to do that.
Okay, I'm going to step in, and we're going to use the poll that you're taking. We're going to look at how we might measure the belonging that you experienced in your groups using the frameworks. We're going to talk a little bit about the framework, the culture of belonging framework, and how we think about it. And you can see that you're rating your groups that you're thinking about very high. So congratulations, you picked very strong belonging groups. So we think about like 5 levels of belonging in our groups in this framework. The very first level, and this, by the way, develops over time, and we'll show you how. The first level is really just about feeling seen and feeling like you're valued, feeling like you matter. It is very common to feel invisible in Jewish spaces or any spaces. It's pretty easy to feel invisible. So this is just about feeling visible, and more than visible, like they see you for who you really are. And I heard that comment come up. I saw it in the chat. So that's the first level. The second level is feeling like, now that I'm seen and I matter, that I'm actually committed and I want to do something to help this group succeed, or this organization succeed, team. Next level is that I'm part of something bigger. And that feeling like, oh, wow, I feel a sense of belonging, that I'm part of a bigger thing. And you get swept up in that sense of being a part of a group or an organization. At the next level, and this takes time, develops over time, is trust. And I don't mean the trust between Maya and I trust each other, which we do, but it's the trust of we call general mutual trust across a group, that we don't have to know each other, but because we're all part of this group, and this group has standards, and this is how we treat each other. We have each other's backs. And because I'm part of this group, I know that they'll be here for me. So it's that kind of trust. And then finally, it's that sense of pride and identity, that I would wear the T-shirt that says this is who I am, or the hat. This is my JCC. And it kind of takes a while, and it takes a lot of intention to get to these levels. So we intuitively understand that what belonging is and what it feels like, because we have life experiences that tell us that, but we don't intentionally design for it very often. And that's what this is all about. It's about designing for belonging with a lot of thought, a lot of planning, and a lot of goal setting. What happens when we feel these 5 things, and when many people feel a sense of belonging, when you aggregate it across a group or an organization, is that you start to see that people behave differently, and then you start to see outcomes at an organizational or a group level. And these are the things that you want to see. You work for JCCs, these are things you're looking for. And so people take ownership, they take initiative, they collaborate more effectively with each other, with others, and they're willing to share their knowledge, they bring, and their money and their time. They bring their assets to your organization, and these are all things that you can measure in your organization, and we do measure. I'll share some examples later. So when we talk about this culture of belonging framework, the most important thing to think about is that it's a systematic, intentional way of structuring everything we do across an organization, so that with a goal, and the goal is that everyone feels those measurements that we talked about, and that we don't leave things to chance. It's not by accident. We don't throw an event or have a class and sort of expect that because we brought everyone into a room that they're going to feel belonging, that they're going to start creating community. It doesn't work like that. It works for extroverts, or it works sometimes by accident because people click, but we don't rely on chemistry. We don't rely on people clicking, because we want this to happen for everyone, and we want it to be systematic across our organizations. So we're going to start putting on those belonging glasses and thinking about every corner of our JCCs, every corner of our organizations. Where can we make a change? Where can we set a goal that creates belonging and that creates connections between people? One of the easiest ways to really think about what belonging is, and what this culture of belonging framework is to talk a little bit about what it's not. And this is let's go into your JCC. So this could be your basketball program. This could be a senior program. It might be a senior program. And this is a wonderful class. These look like very happy water aerobics participants. They're getting exactly what they wanted and they needed for the fee that they paid. This list of offerings on the left are wonderful things, and they are things that many of you spend a lot of time and effort on, and there is nothing wrong with these things. What I'm saying is that they don't automatically create belonging. They don't automatically create a sense of community or connection unless we plan for that. So what I like to think of these things is opportunities or platforms. If you shift your mindset, opportunities to create belonging and to restructure or reimagine what we do and how we plan for it. So that, for example, if we look at this swim class and we said, all right, if our goal is fitness or revenue for the JCC, then or an excellent satisfaction survey, that's one thing. What if we said our goal is also for the participants of this program to reduce their isolation and loneliness, to find community? We might imagine, we might train or hire the instructor differently. We might set up the class differently. We might offer things after the class. There's a million ideas we could come up with. The point is we set the goal differently from the beginning, and then we use our tools differently. And Maya is going to share a little bit about how we do that.
So we understood what culture of belonging is not. But as Wendy started sharing, what do we see when we put on those belonging glasses? We see relationships, we see connections, we see that feeling or feel that feeling of safety, home, family that you all used just a moment ago in your chats. We set intentional belonging goals. So for example, for this session, one of our goals was that each of you gets an opportunity to talk. Now, that's not an easy thing to do with over 100 people present on a Zoom screen. It's not an easy thing to do with 100 people present in a room. So we thought, what can we do? Breakout rooms, perfect opportunity. We know, or we hope, that each and every one of you will leave this meeting with an opportunity to have presented themselves, to have been heard, to talk, and hopefully to have connected a little bit more. When we put on belonging glasses, we look at things, as Wendy said, in a systematic view. We practice things like rituals and set up meetings that look the same over and over again in order to create safety, in order to build that trust that we just spoke about earlier. We have opening prompts that enable people to share other aspects of themselves. And we try not to dive immediately into our to-do list, which is always there. We give people the opportunity to share their unique talents and gifts. You all work with amazing people. How much do you know about them? What do you know about what they do in their free time? Maybe they have additional gifts, not maybe, for sure they have additional gifts and talents that can contribute to the JCC, to your teams. We strive to have ongoing ownership. And when we put on belonging glasses, we tend to say the people come for the what. That may be the swimming pool, the exercise, the Torah class, the fitness class, and they'll stay for the who. They'll stay for the connections. They'll keep coming back to that yoga class because the teacher knows exactly who they are and what hurts and what works. They'll stay with the swim team, as you see in the picture, because it's not all about swimming in competition. It's about creating those relationships, lifelong relationships with their peers. So we've put together 10 principles to create culture of belonging. They're here in front of you, all 10. Take a moment, take a look at them. We're understanding now what culture of belonging is not. We're starting to understand what it is. We looked at measurements for individuals and what happens in the organizations. But we also need a design guide. And this design guide is something that Wendy and I both keep on our desks for designing meetings, writing job descriptions, onboarding new employees, settling crucial conversations maybe between two people. They're always there. And each of these can be unpacked and analyzed. And we have sessions and workshops where we go deep into every one, really understanding them, but we do want to have you get a sense of them. And they'll guide you from everything you do, from what the front desk might look like, to the swim lessons, to how you design your locker rooms, or Coach Joe, the basketball, I think it was basketball, right? The basketball team. And not less important, of course, internally. How do you retain your employees? You engage them in your work meetings and the internal communication, and how you run your board meetings, and how you grow your teams and engage the broader community in everything you do. So adopting the culture of belonging mindset is not only the core principles of the framework. We also talk a lot about shifting focus. We talk about what does it look like with your glasses off to a place of glasses on, where we want people and members and employees to feel as partners. From a place where we count how many people attended ProCon 21 to a place where we count how many new connections were made. Okay. From a place where we focus on employee or customer satisfaction, 1 to 5, right? We're all used to those customer satisfactions. To a place where we try to design experiences that really bring people on board, that see people for who they are, that reach out to individuals and say, hey, I know how you know how to cook really well. We need you for this cookout we're having next weekend. Or I saw you in that swim class. The way you swim, you could recruit anyone to our swim team. We need you out there. So for focusing a number of participants to connection, I already said that. And from focus on filling open positions, which probably some of you out there, the JCCs have, and volunteer slots, to really looking, maybe you can move someone from one role to another, even in a place where it doesn't seem trivial, right? and all with the mindset of having people really as partners, that you recognize the importance of having them there, that they feel significant, that they feel committed, and that they belong. So this was just really a brief intro. In a moment, Wendy will share with us some of the work that we're doing at the San Francisco Federation. But before that, I'm curious to hear if you could just type in the chat, how is this sitting with you? Which letter best describes how you're feeling at the moment? The guy on the left, puzzled, still a bit confused about all of this, maybe even not really sure where it's going. Or B, super excited, ready to go, I want to learn more. Or C, this is really giving me a migraine, I've just heard too much information, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm still digesting, not really sure where that's going. And I'd also like you to give you an option of D, which is none of these. So I'm just looking at the chat with you right now. Ooh, it seems like a lot of you are super excited by this, which is wonderful to see. And thank you for some of you that are honest, that are still puzzled and confused. It's definitely overwhelming. I feel like we're giving you so much information in so little time. Okay,
I see a few Ds, so that means
yes. A few Ds.
If anyone wants to volunteer what their D is, that would be welcome.
You want to unmute yourself and share with us? We're happy to hear. Any Ds out there?
Hello, Rika Logan
Hello.
from JCC in Westchester County, New York. How are you?
Very well. Thank you for stepping up, Rika.
Sure, the D is not a judgment thing. It's neither negative nor positive. I just looked at these three and I said, I'm not puzzled. I'm sticking with you. I'm also not the way she looks at C at all. But I'm also not the jumping up in the, doing yay kind of thing. I'm actually taking this all in. I've been like writing notes. I've been taking pictures of some of the slides. I'm getting what I call great golden nuggets that I think I could use.
Wonderful. I love your D. I wonder if we could find a face that reflects everything you just said, as I'm assuming.
The person in the middle, but without such a big smile.
Okay.
Of a little smirk without the fists up in the air.
Or maybe somebody furiously taking notes.
That would work too. I'm really, it's golden nuggets, and I like golden nuggets.
Good.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question. It's Kathy. So can you just give me an example of your 10 principles to create culture of belonging? Encourage multidimensional sharing and doing. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Of course. It relates to what I said earlier about the importance of getting to know our staff, our members, our community on more than one level. So I'm not only the mother of a student at the day school. I'm not only a swim team member. I'm not only a front desk worker, but I have a lot of other dimensions or parts to me. How can I design differently that those additional identities can be shared? And what we often do for that, and I'll just say this very briefly, of course, we can talk about this much more if it interests you, but often what we do for that is we have what we call opening prompts, or manishma, which in Hebrew means how are you, sort of what's up. And we relate that how are you to something we're going to talk about today. So it's not just a completely open how are you, but it's a how are you that relates to something that we're going to talk about today. And it enables you to share just a little bit more about yourself that others can relate to, that others can connect, that you get to know people in additional dimensions for who they are, and not just only the one-dimensional, in their role that they're playing within the organization or as a member or whatever it may be.
So really, when it comes to staff and members, it would be staff digging more into members, like to learning. Is that what, am I on the right track? So meaning like this, like the front desk staff or whoever it is, that they need to not just say hello to the lady that comes in every day at 10 o'clock for the swim, but stop and have that discussion to learn a little bit more about her. Is that what you're saying?
It's not only in conversation. Imagine you'd know that lady, and imagine that you know that she really likes bitter chocolate, and imagine that that's what you would have out there on the front desk for her. She would feel seen. She would feel someone knows her. Imagine you'd know it's her birthday.
Okay.
Imagine you'd know what her children or her parents or her grandchildren are all about, and maybe that it's a really big day for her. But we create and we design structures that we are able to get to know people on those levels. So it's not just sending out a list when someone signs up for membership and saying, what are you interested in? What are the things you like? It's creating structures. Maybe at the beginning of a swim team, you ask the children or the grown-ups to share one significant thing that they did to overcome courage in their life. Okay, because for a lot of people, entering water can be an issue. So you create structures and systems in place in order to get to know people in additional ways.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we will leave hopefully still a few minutes for questions, but I would love, Wendy, if you'd be open and willing to share some of the work that we have both done in this field in San Francisco.
Great. Yeah, and I know there's some Bay Area people on the call whose names I recognize who are involved in the work we do. In fact, one I just messaged hi to, Gali Beck from Oshman JCC, and she's actually participating in one of the things I'm going to mention. But so, as Maya said at the beginning, we've been partnering with Sarale Shadmi Wortman and with really the Matnasim, the IACC system, learning from them. I've been there several times. They've come to us, and we kind of built from them this model that, but in our language and applied to the Bay Area, or the United States, and the North American Jewish engagement kind of world, and so we've developed a number of ways of working with our organizational partners to share this framework and learn together. Lots of professional-based cohorts. For example, we're in the middle of a 2-year day school cohort working with 9 day schools, which Maya actually leads, to transform their whole culture. And it was amazing to be doing this during COVID, because boy, did they have to transform their culture. And thank goodness we were already doing this. It was very helpful. We're also running a cohort of professionals who are creating small groups for families with young children. And that's the one I was talking about that Gali's involved in. And then one that might be most relevant, because I know that the JCCs are working on talent, is that within the Federation, we've run what we call CB labs, Culture of Belonging labs. Maya and I run those. And those are really deep dives, almost train the trainer, 7 sessions where we take a group of Federation professionals, lead them through a cohort, very, it's like very intensive. They really bond with each other. It's very experiential. And we take them through a process where they're learning the framework and applying it to their professional work, both on their internal work within the organization, but also on their external work with others, with partners. And we've also developed lots of tools, assessments, guidelines, how to reflect on specific organizational processes, like the one that just came up. So these are not like easy to just answer, like, oh, this is how you would do it with your front desk. It takes sitting down and thinking, okay, what's our goal? What do we want the goal to be? And how might we design a process for that? It isn't as simple as it sounds. Sometimes it's simple, but often it's more complex. So we do coaching and we work with organizations to figure out how might we do more of this? If you do this in one part of your organization, how might we do it in another part of your organization? Because this is about culture change. This isn't about the tactics. It's about doing it across a whole organization and changing the mindset of an organization and training everybody and having this as an expectation so that everyone starts to behave in a certain way across an entire organization. And I mean like board members and all of your new employees. It's part of your onboarding. I mean, that's what we mean by culture. So that's a little bit of an overview of what we're trying to do in the Bay Area. It's very ambitious, but We're really, we have a conference next week that Mark is coming to called 473K. 473,000 is the number of people in Bay Area Jewish households. And we want all of them to belong. And that's what this conference is about. We have over 300 people coming to our online conference. And there's really, I would say it's a movement. We have a movement in the Bay Area around belonging. And I put a link in for that 10 principles, but we got lots more tools that we'd be happy to share with you.
Thank you, Wendy. Indeed, a lot of work being done. We truly believe that the world will be a much better place when each and every single one of us will have a framework that we feel that we belong to, that we feel seen, that we feel all those amazing things that you just wrote about the groups that you've been part of throughout your life. And we like to say that cultural belonging is not about doing more things, because sometimes people look at us and say, I can't do anymore. My plate is completely full. So it's not about doing more things, but it's doing the same things differently, thinking about them differently. So we've covered a lot of material. I feel like it's been a lot of material in a very short amount of time. And I just want to pause for the few minutes that we have left and give you a chance to absorb, reflect, put in the chat any questions you might have. So just take a moment, reflect. If you have any questions, you can either unmute or just in the chat.
I think we'll probably have time to address maybe one question, because then we want you to stick around for some important messages afterwards.
Okay, so one question. Who's going to have that one question? I think that put too much pressure.
Sorry.
Well, Wendy and I are here. We're happy to share the slides, and we're happy to also individually answer any questions you may have. And we don't end gatherings. That's also one other thing we do in terms of structure of meetings. We don't end gatherings or meetings on logistical notes, although in a moment, Mark will most likely end on some logistical note, but I take responsibility for our part. I do want, we would appreciate if every one of you could just write a word or something that reflects something that you're going to be leaving, a feeling or thought that you're leaving this workshop with in a moment. And then, Mark, optimistic, inspired, that I belong to the JCC, intention, doing the same things differently, new perspectives, positive, focus on belonging, positivity, encouragement, rituals, hopeful, interest, connections. Start with belonging as a goal, awareness. And the list goes on, and as it comes in, Mark, I will turn it over to you so that we can end on time. Thank you, thank you, thank you, everyone, for really contributing, for being here, for sharing. We appreciate it, and we hope to hear from you soon.
Well, let me tell you something, Maya and Wendy. I hope people realize now the same feeling that Sue Gelsey and I felt when we attended your Kickstart back in November, and how just blown away we were, because it was just speaking to the essence of JCCs. And I'm just having that taste of chocolate in my mouth, that person that knows I need chocolate at that time. That's why I belong. The fitness center may be great, the camp, jet skis may be great, but I know that that's like a huge part of JCCs. And I think you've really certainly opened my mind again, and I think we're all really inspired, as the chat said. And I will say, no major announcements here quite yet, but we are talking with Maya and Wendy about how do we work really with this group, wonderful team, to bring these cultural belonging ideas in a deep way beyond this 1 hour to all of our JCCs. So Maya and Wendy, thank you for partnering with us this hour, and looking forward to partnering with you many, many times before. Let me just put your emails in the chat. You can look at their full bio on SpotMe and contact them in there, but feel free to connect with Wendy and Maya directly as well. Before you go, I have you for 2 more minutes. A quick reminder that the virtual vendor hall will be open again from 1:45 to 2:45. As I said at the beginning, these vendors are the reason why we're able to bring this all to you for free this week. So please take a minute or 2 or 7 or 20 and visit a few of these vendors. They'll really appreciate it, and you may learn something and gain something for you and your JCC as well. You may have a trusted advising session coming up, either at 1:45 or 2:15. That will be on your personal schedule in SpotMe. It'll click you to the link, and you'll have your one-on-one with your trusted advisor. Very important, at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, I think that's 10 p.m. in Israel, but I'm covering all the time zones, we have our closing movement moment. Join thousands of your peers at the final JCC movement moment, Power in Community. We'll be joined by experienced JCC professionals and professionals from beyond the movement to engage in a roundtable discussion on the imperative of cross-community collaboration that comprises the linking of arms, hearts, and minds. Thank you so much for being a part of ProCon 2021 and this session. Thank you again to Wendy and Maya and to my colleague Angela. See you at future ProCon things today and of course beyond that too.